All right, welcome to the season podcast. This is episode 20. Reminder, episode 19, our normal weekly show was yesterday. So please go check that out. And the reason we have episode 20 today is we got a special edition. We have a special guest. As many of you know, we don't have a whole lot of guests yet on the season pod in our first season. We have reserved that for very special people.
Yes.
And we have that special person today. And if you're an NFL fan in general, this dude needs no introduction, but I think he deserves an introduction. So we're going to give him an introduction. This man was drafted number 2 overall by the Rams in 2008. He was an 11-year NFL veteran, 2-time Super Bowl champ in the 2016 and 17 season. One of only 6 NFL players in the history of the game to have back-to-back Super Bowls with 2 different teams. Basically a front runner. Basically a front runner. I actually had a chance to play against him in 2011. He was with the Rams. St. Louis Rams, shows how old he is. I was with the Browns. I lined up to block him at one point. I was like right next to Joe Thomas, Hall of Fame left tackle. I'm like, Joe, you block this cat? I don't want anything to do with this, man. So, needless to say, that was how I handled it. But retired after the 2018 season when the Eagles lost a tough one on the road to the Saints in the divisional round. He is the 2018 Walter Payton Man of the Year for excellence on the field and off the field through philanthropy and commitment to community. We are so proud to welcome Chris Long to the season podcast.
Chris.
Hey, dude, that was great. And also, I want to point this out: 2-time Nick Foles teammate.
There you go.
St. Louis Rams. Fun year.
Best Nick Foles story. I want to hear it.
One of the best years we shared together. It was up there.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I don't have any particularly embarrassing stories about Nick. Like, that's the problem with Nick. He's just always a good guy. He's always, you know what I mean? It's to the point where it's a little boring, man. Sometimes you gotta mix it up and be a bad person every.
Is the rumor true? Is the rumor true though? Is the nickname true? Was it warranted?
Listen, we had these showers that were really hot. And, I don't know if he just was cranking the heat in the shower, but, like he was always fluffed and prepped. But, yeah.
It was, let's put it this way, it never looked like he went in the cold tub, is what you're saying.
Well, he avoided the cold tub because he was trying to keep the legend alive. This is a lot of smoke and mirrors.
I think that's the best Nick Foles story we've had on this show.
Oh,
right
it's
there.
so good.
It's very easy.
It's so good. It's great because my brother-in-law, and it's just so good. It's I guess it's just, it is what it is. I think when I circled, I remember one time I was 18 walking by your locker and just what you had put up in your locker. The shrine. The shrine.
Oh, there's the Nick Foles story. All right, so this week the Eagles had the positivity bunny. Didn't work last week for the Raiders game. Like, positivity bunny.
Dude, I saw that too, and it lasted less than a week, and then it was gone.
Dog, the bunny was like, man, I got my work cut out for me. But somebody texted me from in the building, not a media member, not a coach or anything. And they were like, man, that bunny had nothing on this thing right here. And he sent me a picture of that shrine. And yeah, I just remember we were bad in 18 before we picked it up. Like Carson was coming off an ACL, December ACL, kind of like relevant right now, talking about these quarterbacks that are rehabbing. And I think he also had the LCL as well.
Yeah, he did.
Which complicated the whole process. And, that's our guy. And he came back and tried. And, Carson, he's stubborn, so he wanted to play. And, he's got a bad back, too. He's just jacked up. Eventually, we kind of throw in the towel on the thing, and Nick takes over again. And we were in a place where guys were the vibes weren't high. And so I went to the gas station and got these prayer candles and put Nick Foles' biography up, partially opened in my locker, in the middle of all these prayer candles. And it was basically the Nick Foles shrine. Well, it had nothing to do with Carson. It just was a way to lighten the mood. And people, and he's like, here, I have it. It's Believe It. I actually have a copy here as well.
Oh, this is so good. Did he sign it for you?
No, he hasn't. Well, did he sign it? Yeah, he did. It says to Michael.
Who's
I'm not really.
He stole it from Michael.
Whose was that?
His book. But no, that was hilarious. The other Nick Foles story was when Jadeveon Clowney basically killed him, and I was saying after the game that I thought they were going to put a statue. They were going to put because I don't know if the statue was up yet. Was the statue of Philly up yet?
I think it was in 18.
It was?
I think,
While you were
yeah.
still playing?
Yeah, I think it was.
So they were going to put it
statue up while
right
you were
next
still
to
playing?
your sarcophagus, your catacomb, because I thought you were dead, dude. The way they hit you,
Dude, I couldn't. The thing is,
The statue's missing one thing.
when you get speared in the head, or speared in the chest by Clowney, and it misses your rib protector, what people don't realize is you can't like get oxygen. Like I could not breathe for like 30 seconds. I was just trying to grab air.
That was as hard as I saw you get hit, man. But he got back up, and we ended up, I think, winning that game, the Houston game. But yeah, like me and Nick have been through some stuff, and like we've been through St. Louis, which was a totally different deal, a totally different kind of pressure, totally different kind of like that vibe it's tough. And but I can always say this about Nick. I always tell people the thing I admire most about Nick is the thing I said when I don't have a good story about him. He's the same guy all the time. And, not everybody you play with is like that. And, people are like, what was Nick like in St. Louis, when he wasn't playing his best and the team was bad and it wasn't good protection and, he's taking crap in the media. He was the same guy. We'd sit in the hot tub and BS about the same things, and he'd have the same positive outlook. And so I always appreciated that. And that was as fun as 17 was, 18 was its own thing. And actually, coincidentally, just yesterday, Nick, not preparing for this podcast, was sitting there watching tape. My kids were like, show me an old game. And I was like, I bet you I could find the 18 playoff game, divisional round. And I kind of got caught up in watching it again. I hadn't watched it since it happened. And it hurt, man, to watch it because we were in control. For that team to start 4-6 and play the way we played on that stage, I mean, it said a lot about the character of our team.
Yeah.
And Nick had a lot to do with it, but we had some great people on that team. And so I look back at that with sadness, but also with like what a ride that year was, man. We fought our way out of it, man. And you see it this year with the Eagles, how hard it is to repeat and defend that title.
I think one of the coolest moments of that game is when Alshon, I want to say drop, but when he missed that ball over the middle, it was slant, right?
It was like he sat down.
And it got picked. And he's laying on the ground, and there's a still photo of the first guy that was over there to pick him up off the ground and tell him it was okay. Right? That was, I mean, talk about being the same guy, right? That you were the first guy over there. That's not normal. Most quarterbacks like fucking pissed and walk off the field, and that was pretty cool.
Well, that was the big thing.
I noticed it immediately yesterday when I watched, and this is no BS.
Oh, cool.
And I said to my kids, I'm watching Alshon, the way Nick went up to him, and then also when he got to the sideline, the way Doug embraced him, the way guys we just had a special team.
Yeah.
We did.
No, it was. And I remember in my exit meeting with Howie, because I knew my time in Philly was done, and I brought that up, and I was like, just remember, I know it didn't end the way we wanted it to, but that's what being a Philadelphia Eagle is it's a brotherhood. And, I mean, we've been on all these different teams, right? You brotherhood, all the different things, but what we had in that locker room was so special, and we knew it at the time. That's why we were able to find a way when we were 4-6 to come back and make a run at the end. I think with 3 games left in the season, we had a 3% chance to make the playoffs. I remember we were sitting in the locker room after we beat the Redskins on the road, and I think the Vikings had to lose, and they lost. And then we go and we beat the Bears on the road, and then we almost have the Saints. And just the way we were, where no one pointed fingers. We talked earlier in the season, like you either have people that want to be problem solvers and work together to figure out things, and then you have finger pointers, and you're one or the other. And that team that year was just we were always trying to solve problems. We cared for each other. And like when Alshon dropped, I knew what he felt. I could see his emotions on the field. So I went up to him and grabbed him. And like, I remember right away say, hey, I love you. I love being your teammate. And I walked off the field. I knew that was my last time walking off a field as a Philadelphia Eagle because of, Carson is going to be the franchise quarterback. I knew that it just wasn't going to continue on the way it was going to go. And, yeah, I was emotional, but I cared more about my teammates on the sidelines and on the field than, yeah, we would have loved the outcome to be, hey, I throw a touchdown in the end zone. Now we're going, to the
Rams, I think.
Yeah, NFC Championship game against the Rams. We'd be playing the Rams, and we just beat the Rams a few weeks prior. And we knew that environment. But that's what's special, and that's where I look back at the career, and everyone always asks Philly special. I was like, man, I really just think about like the guys in the locker room, the relationships, those moments that are so special. I know you made the shrine, but just like the joy of like the guys, the personalities, and the Eagles now. I mean, we'll talk a little bit about it, but like the repeating's hard, and it's hard to do so. And I do see a lot of parallels with the Eagles team that we had, and this Eagles team is just the challenge of losing coaches, new coaches coming in, and then finding out your new identity. So it was a special year. Those years we got to be together, and I think it made it even more special that you, Rodney McLeod, and myself were on that Rams team.
Yeah,
that was a very difficult year for all of us, and myself, where I almost stepped away from the game, and then we got to win a Super Bowl together. It was pretty special.
Yeah. No, I think that was that 15 in St. Louis?
15 in St. Louis, yeah.
And that was as bad as it got for me. I'm coming off of playing hurt the year before and not playing well because I'm trying to get out there and play, and probably should have just sat my ass down. And the same thing happened again to me in 15. And so that was a real hard year for me. It was a hard year for Nick. And I know as anybody on a team like that, it was truly a rags to riches thing for us, and so I think it's a perfect example of not everybody gets the storybook ending in their career, and football's not fair. I got teammates that I can say deserved it 1,000% more than me, for sure. That James Laurinaitis of the world and people like that like everybody used to say, oh man, you deserve it. You were on so many bad teams. Well, that there was 52 other guys who deserved it. We were so lucky to just end up in the right place and be there at the right time. And I just cherish that so much. I mean, my life could be completely different if I don't end up on those teams. And, if Nick's not there to back Carson up, it's just like, it's fate, man. Sometimes it feels that way. So, and the best part is, I had a charity event recently in Philly. I see guys, whether they're guys that I played with or, the alums that we all looked up to, Harold Carmichael, Seth, Quick. Those guys are showing up to my events and, still having a relationship with Nick and Kelsey and Bo and Fletch. It really is a lifelong thing. When you're on a team like that, it lasts forever. And so I love it, man.
That's awesome. That's a good segue because, Chris, we want to get into this version of the Eagles. And I think throughout the conversation, we can draw comparisons to what you guys went through in a quest to repeat in 18. But let's start here for this version of the Eagles this year, because I know you on your show and on our show, we've talked so much about this team and trying to kind of decode what the hell's going on. And so on the heels of this get-right game, if you will, against the Raiders, right, where the defense was fantastic. Defense had 11 sacks the last two games. I remember back when they brought Jalen Phillips in, the leading sacker on the team before Jalen Phillips arrived was Zadarius Smith, and he wasn't even on the team anymore, right? So they weren't really getting after the passer all that well. Jalen was great, 12 of 15 for 175 yards, 3 touchdowns. It is like a get-right game, but the Raiders are one of the worst teams we've seen in the league for a long time. So
that's right.
What is your current kind of feel for where this team is at with 3 games left in the regular season and how you feel after that get-right game?
Number one, I think the defense is, as long as they don't have that game where they can't fit the run up like they did against Chicago, which, that's got its own challenges playing that team. But, as you look at the teams in the playoffs that have great defenses, I would put them in that category. I don't think they're Houston defensively. I don't think they're Denver, but I don't think the Delta's that big. Mm-hmm. I think they have plenty. They put the fire out at corner 3. I think Adori's done a good job. Vic stabilized, just like last year. Walking out of that Atlanta game, you think that team was going to win anything, and their defense transformed into this elite group that basically dominated the Super Bowl. So I think Vic Fangio, obviously a huge hire 2 years ago, when you have a young defense, and I'm including this year in it, the defense you start the year with is not going to be the defense you finish the year with. There are these jumps in readiness that guys go through, whether it's like Jahad Campbell or something like that, or Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell, the last couple years, having those guys, that's a franchise-altering haul. Yeah. As a pass rusher, man, it must be nice playing on that team. And the Zach Bond move. So I think defensively, that's your identity right now. Offensively, I want to see more consistency. And I think you especially want to see it in the passing game. But unfortunately, the consistency in the passing game was at least in part predicated on their ability to run the ball down everybody's throat last year. So you kind of are trying to put two fires out. And I saw them doing more of some things we want to see. I know Nick and I talk on the side about this stuff. Want to see more pre-snap motion. Okay, we saw more of that last week. Want to see more under center. We saw more of that last week. I think, and Nick's talked about this, offline, and I'm sure he's mentioned, but the timing, the timing in the passing game, just being on the same page. I think that's the stuff you want to see going into the playoffs. Did the Vegas game answer that stuff for me? No, just to be honest. I know it's not going to be a popular take, but you did what you were supposed to do. You shouldn't be docked for that. But I do want to see the passing game be in more of a rhythm. And I think the thing that I specifically want to see in the passing game is more work in the middle of the field.
Yes.
And a skinny post doesn't count to me.
Yeah.
Like a quick in cut doesn't count to me. I want to see in traffic in the middle of the field this offense operate. And I'd love to see more man beaters. I'd love to see more stacks and bunches. Like I got a Christmas list this long.
Nick, how many times we talked about that though? Like owning the middle of the field, whether it's with a slot receiver or a dominant tight end. I think Dallas Goedert's a good player, but one of the things I think they lack in the passing game that is a mitigating factor for both Jalen and Kevin Patullo is someone that truly owns the middle of the field as a pass catcher, right? They have two number ones on the outside. Those guys are great players, but they're like good 50-50 ball guys, and they're rarely lined up over the middle of the field running those types of routes, right? So like I mean, Chris, Nick and I have talked about that a bunch, about owning the middle of the field.
Yeah, and I think a big thing, we talked about slot receivers, and honestly, there's no way for us to really know that, because to get to the middle of the field, you have to go through your progressions. You don't just start at the middle of the field unless you're just, hitting a seam or whatever. Usually a lot of times, like if it's a basic route over the middle of the field, it's because you were reading the left side of the field and then you got back to the basic and the defense moved and it just took you there because everyone flowed. I agree with Chris. The biggest thing, and this is, I don't know how you fix this during the season, because I think it might be, Jalen does a lot of great things. He's obviously a Super Bowl champ, Super Bowl MVP. He wins a lot of games. He can use his legs. But there's things I see him do well. He throws a deep ball well. He can scramble around and throw on the run well. And he runs it well. He does those things well. The thing that he lacks is the timing and rhythm with concepts. And that is a flaw in his game, but that's exciting because that means his ceiling is higher. If someone can work with him, going through progressions, trusting the progressions. I love what you said, like with the little bang post to A.J. Brown. That was great. That was on time and rhythm. You threw it. There's three guys around there, threw a perfect ball. Great play. Love to see it. It's also against, I agree, a Raiders team that you could tell when I was just watching the film, they just didn't look like they wanted to be out there. The Eagles did what they were supposed to do versus them, but it's one of those things where the next progression in his game is timing and rhythm. And that, we joke about it. We were just in Vegas at a Circus Olay show where they're doing all these things. He's throwing the yo-yos, the gymnastics, whatever it may be, and I'm just looking over at Ev. I'm like, dude, they get fundamentals right. They do fundamentals. But it's just those things where that's something that the QB coach in the offseason and during the season, you have to constantly be doing footwork drills, timing drills, and you got to just constantly, and even in walkthroughs, that's the thing, walkthroughs have to have intentionality. I remember when walkthrough, I would literally do my footwork at the speed of the walkthrough so I could feel the perfect timing, and then I would step up in the pocket. And I knew based on my footwork and my timing when it was time to push up and get vertical, or we would always say, if you lose your feet, find your back. I see with Jalen, like when he does get to his check down, it's sort of a afterthought where he just sort of like randomly remembers and flings it out there. And he missed a couple short check downs because he's probably, and I'm not at practice, but I'd imagine like the way you're great at that is you're constantly doing drills to go through your progressions to get there. My guess is in practice, they're not doing that. And when they're repping plays, when you're repping plays against a scout defense, you're always trying to be aggressive downfield. Very seldom in a practice do you get to a check down because you're always trying to push it. That's something you have to do on the side, but and then going through progressions. That's the part of the game that's missing, and that's also why it's probably led them to a lot of 3-and-outs this year where they lead the league, is they have to work on those things. So the positive, and listeners might be, no, that means his ceiling is higher. They just need to get the right coach in there to work with him, and you can develop that skill set. That's something that is developed, and you can't just say as a coach, like, oh, this is just this game and this is what we have to stick with. No, like, continue to develop him. Like, his ceiling is higher. That's exciting for the Philadelphia Eagles. That's exciting for the NFL, but it's hard to do that during the season. if it's something you haven't been working on, that's an off-season thing. So I agree 100%, but they will be so much better if he can start going through his progressions and finding those outlets in the middle of the field, because there's going to be a lot of voids. It'll take him to the next level.
I think you said it, though, like, as a player, if I were a pass rusher and somebody came in and said, hey, I love the way you play, but I got some ideas on how we can elevate your game, and it's going to make you uncomfortable. That work needs to be done in the offseason, right? You know, it's only so easy to be like, hey, in-flight adjust, we're gonna push you to outside of your comfort zone. And I do think Jalen has one where, and it's admirable because he don't want to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
You know, and usually that's like a compliment. And, like, you know, if he were the guy he was in the Chargers game more often, then he wouldn't be the quarterback. Like, what's great about Jalen is he does protect the football.
Yes.
But I think sometimes, and if I were to say I think he plays safe sometimes, I think a lot of people would say, what are you talking about? You see these deep balls, these bombs? I'm like, and you're a quarterback, so you know this, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think when you got those two wide receivers out there who you deem number ones, and I agree with you, you got the sideline, you got man coverage. It's one of the safest throws in football if you can make it the way he does, which is I think he throws as good a deep ball outside the numbers as anybody in football.
Yep.
And so to me, when I talk about taking risks, I mean throwing people open in traffic and in the middle of the field. And as you put it, like, a lot of times is late in the down, you know, and late in the down can't always be like, oh, shit, like, there's Saquon. You know, it's like, hey, well, there's Dallas on a drag, or, you know, I remember last year, or at times watching this offense, I complained that there were no hots, you know, and sometimes you wonder, like, how much of it is because they're not giving him hots, or how much of it is because, like, he's not seeing it quick enough. And again, like, we're nitpicking here. If you guys want to go home in the first round, then cool. Like, everything's fine. We don't need to talk about anything. But, like, you're trying to win a Super Bowl, so of course you're going to nitpick on the habits of the offense and the quarterback. So in no way am I personally saying that they need a different guy at quarterback or anything like that. What we're saying is, like, if they want to go where they're trying to go this year in this different set of circumstances, he's going to have to push outside his comfort zone a little bit.
So I think you're hitting on something really good there, and that is, one of you guys already mentioned this, is that when you're building what could, like, after last season, we were asking, like, could this be a dynasty? Because pretty much all the talent's coming back. Could they repeat, right? When you're building a dynasty, or you're building multiple championships in a row, oftentimes in the history of the league, especially the last 25 years, styles of play may modify and evolve throughout the course of that happening, right? Go back to the Patriots, right? I know, Chris, you played for the Patriots. Like, their style of, like, the way they dominated, the way they got it done, changed year to year. It wasn't always exactly the same. And as much as we'd love this Eagles team to run for over 2,000 yards again this year with Saquon Barkley and dominate the line of scrimmage, as much as we think that is a winning formula, that obviously is not happening this year. Even though the offensive line is intact from last year, with the exception of Tyler Steen being the only newcomer, this group is not dominating this year. They're not running the ball very effectively. So I guess the question becomes, and I think I know the answer, but the question becomes, if this team is going to get right and make a run in the playoffs and possibly repeat, what does it look like? What does this version look like this year? Is that Jalen all of a sudden becoming a really good drop back passer? I mean, because it's obvious, we know it's going to look different, and that's normal for teams for it to look different.
Normal.
So how does it look different for this group then?
Yeah, you have to remember New England changed forms over the course of their dynasty a million times, and I would challenge Kansas City to do that. Yeah, especially coming off of Mahomes' injury.
Like, start running the ball, you mean?
Yeah, like, change. Just, you know, I think like Baltimore and Kansas City, and I'm not comparing Todd Monken and Andy Reid, but the culmination of all your efforts is like, hey, I need my best player to make a play late in the down. Like, that's not an offense, you know, like, so when we're talking about the Eagles, like, what I'd like to see, I love some of the RPO stuff. Obviously, we got a lot out of the RPOs back in the day when we used to walk uphill to school in the snow, but
both ways.
But now, you know, maybe it's more of those flat type looks to Dallas Goedert, which seem undefeated. Maybe it's more under center play action. I think they come out of the gate in the Chargers game and they go under center, they go play action in the second half, and all of a sudden the field's flipped. They're like, it's easy when they're doing it right. And you don't even have to be running the ball well. As you know, And we talk about this like, if you're a linebacker and, you know, you're fitting outside zone from under center, like you have to honor that look longer. If you're a linebacker and you're in gun, that play action look is totally different. You know, like you can kind of play out of that thing quicker. Like just taking snaps under center would be a start, right? I think pre-snap motion. I think like when you watch Chicago or you watch San Francisco or you like watch some of these other souped up like West Coast offenses like on steroids, right? It is like the damn Cirque du Soleil. There's a million moving parts. It's an organism. You're watching like the play starts before it even starts. And that's like the currency in the NFL now. And when I watch the Eagles, it's just so much more static. And sometimes it's just like they ooze. You know, it's like an offense on NyQuil. And that's a systemic thing. It's not that. The quarterback.
That's pretty good.
It's not, you know, and so for me, and Nick would know way better than me, it's definitely timing, it's definitely pre-snap motion, it's alignment, it's the type of plays you're calling, but it's also like, okay, we're not going to be able to run the ball for 2,000 yards with our running back this year. History tells us that Eddie George, DeMarco Murray, when they got a certain amount of touches in the last 25 years, those running backs do not match their production the next year. They should have been more ready for it. And I think the move for Tank Bigsby has been great, but like maybe a little bit more of him, and maybe a little bit more of Saquon and design passes out of the backfield.
Yeah.
Like how many times have you seen him take an angle route against man coverage and go for like 35, 40 yards? Like I want to see more of that. Like he should be a weapon.
Yeah.
So yeah, like to Nick's point, you got to find somebody who can win in the middle of the field, and you got to have the quarterback's got to be willing to do it. But I think we saw a good start.
Yeah.
With the red zone stuff. I love some of the looks to Goddard. And that quarterback coach now, they talk about this guy from Bowling Green that coaches quarterbacks there. They're saying, hey, some of the same concepts are showing up. And it's like a little bit of a rumor. But, you know, you kind of wonder who's running the offense. Is it Nick? Is it Patullo? Is it like – I don't really know. I wasn't on this team.
Yeah.
These weren't our coaches.
It's probably by committee. I know there was like a scene after the strike to A.J. Brown where, you know, I didn't get to see like the entirety of the clip, but it looked like Nick Sirianni had drawn up that play or something. They were celebrating. It was something like, you know, you like that or which is exciting. But what people, you know, he had 3 touchdowns. The one to A.J. Brown I love. Timing and rhythm, but downfield, that's great. What's crazy is if the underneath flat defender carried any further, it would have been a really dangerous throw. So great read, whatever. But then right underneath that, and this is where progressions are powerful, is like that's a touchdown. Awesome throw. Love it. The game prior, it was like the 3rd down in overtime that he hit Devontae Smith. Timing and rhythm across the middle. Huge play. But the next step is, hey, that flat defender, the A.J. Brown one, if he's 2 yards closer, it's going to be in a danger zone. And underneath that, they had a trailing route that replaced the flat defender. So the progression would be A.J. Brown, and I'm glad he threw the touchdown. Touchdown's great. But then the next progression is, and this is where you can work it in walkthrough. I would always work my checkdowns in walkthrough is, flat defender carries, he's underneath. Right underneath, if he hits that check down, which he didn't need to. It was the right read. So
no, it's the right call. But
the next progression is if he can learn to go through his progressions, he doesn't always have to. If that guy's covered, if he just resets his feet in timing and goes to the check down, that guy might score a touchdown too because he's replacing the flat defender. There's 3 guys on A.J. Brown. Great throw, great decision. Everything about it was perfect. But I want to see, hey, if he can learn to go through the next progression, man, he's going to hit the next guy as opposed to try to scramble around and try to make a play. That next guy is going to maybe score a touchdown too. That's the beautiful thing about progressions. And I always thought, you know, when I played defense and I played against defenses, you know, guys would always be like, hey, where are you throwing the ball? What are you doing? I'd always say, I don't know. And they'd be like, what do you mean you don't know? I'd be like, defense is going to tell me where I throw the ball. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know what coverages they have, and I know what to do versus cover 2, cover 1, cover 3. Hey, let's go quarter halves, whatever it is. I know what my progression is. Whatever they play once the ball is snapped, I will then know where the ball is going. But until then, I don't know. I just know based on that, and that's where his next big step is. And then you mentioned RPOs. Like we did a lot of RPOs. We were elite at RPOs. I don't see many of the RPOs we did. You know, the, hey, fake, hit a slant, all those things that we were great at. And you could say the league's changed, but they're still hitting some slant routes to A.J. Brown where I'm like, just make it an RPO. If you want to throw a slant.
Isn't that the same throw?
Yeah, it's the same throw. Let's just read. the backside free safety or the backside linebacker, whoever it is, read that person, either give it to Saquon with a light box or Tank Bigsby with a light box, or throw the slant. 2 of his touchdown passes in the last game were on RPOs. One was like a little shuffle. You're reading the defensive end. If the defensive end goes down, you're giving the ball around the edge. Defensive end comes up. You're pitching it to Dallas Goedert. I believe both Dallas Goedert, he almost had 3 touchdowns on RPOs. The one was dropped or was a little outside throw on the flat where he read the defensive end. He then threw it. It was very similar concept to the one that was against the Chargers that ended the game, except I don't think they had a switch release corner. But that's an RPO. And those were 2 touchdown passes off RPOs, which is great. So they need to do more of that. But I would also say, like, you can also get to the middle of the field with doing RPOs with slant routes. And we even had a basic and stuff like that. There's ways that this offense can evolve to where they can get on Dayquil and not be on NyQuil.
There
right?
you go.
Dayquil.
Or a Zyn. Get on a Zyn, maybe?
Or a Zyn.
Or a shot of espresso.
Zone.
Zone. Sorry. You sponsored by Zone?
Nick, you guys, like, I'm not saying you're oversimplifying it, but you're making it sound pretty simple. And so I guess the follow-up question there is, because like you think about the other really good team in the league that had turnover at the coordinator position is the Lions. And the Lions hit a little bit of a wall mid-season. John Morton's their in-house hire, much like the Eagles did. And then Dan Campbell takes over play calling. It didn't go very well the first game, but then they've been great since. Their defense is so-so, but their offense has been fantastic since. So is this just, hey, Kevin Patullo needs more time, or no, they need to pull play calling duties from Kevin Patullo and take action here to find these very simple solutions? This is not like PhD level football. These are like simple solutions to problems. Why aren't we finding these solutions?
Well, it's one of these things where we've all been calling out things that we see and, you know, we like to see more of or we see too much of, like to the point where my wife's watching the game and she's like, you know, where are the RPOs or where is it, you know, like come on, man, like I need a bunch or a stack here. Like, you know, man, like, you know, my point is this. I'm being funny, but like my point is Kevin Patullo is not an idiot.
Yeah.
No, he's a good coach.
He's got a job for a reason. He's a good football coach. And, you know, like, not everybody's a great offensive coordinator, but these are very, like, you don't think he self-scouts this stuff? You don't think he knows that they're not taking snaps under center or that, you know, the run game's struggling or, you know, maybe they're not working the middle of the field? I think sometimes, like, there's a tension between what players prefer, you know, like what they prefer to run and what the coach wants to run. And I don't know without being in the building, like where the rubber meets the road on that. So like, it's easy for me to say like, what are you doing, Kevin? Yeah. You know, but part of me is like, all right, haven't been in these buildings. Like the truth is always more complicated than you know. And it's also usually in the middle. It's not, it's a combination of things. Yeah. And so I think the biggest domino, like you mentioned Detroit, I knew coming into the season they weren't going to be the same because their interior 3 broke up. And the Eagles, and I do think Dan Campbell's done a better job. And you do need to get it's one thing to game plan, it's one thing to play call, right? Yeah. Like this is why some teams have fantastic scripts and they get off the script and you're like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think like some of it's learning on the job, but I think also, you know, some of it we just don't know why it's happening. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's okay to be like, I don't know. I know what the fix needs to be. But everybody's going to be in trouble if they don't fix it. It ain't just going to be Kevin Patullo. Yeah. Like you see how hard they are on the quarterback in Philly when he doesn't win a couple games.
Yeah, or throws like 3 incompletions.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So it's not an easy place to play football or coach football.
It can be hard to diagnose things strictly from a pass game standpoint. Like I know we went over some solutions, but the reality is, what do you got, Chris?
No, perfect example. Me and Nick. So the Chicago game, the little Devontae Smith third down play, I text Nick and I'm like, yo, is he expecting him to sit down or something? Yeah. We're like, I don't really like it doesn't look, but I don't know.
It was like the angle. Yeah. The angle, like the little read route. Yeah.
Yeah, and in Hard Knocks they come out and you see on the sideline.
Yeah, thought he was going to sit.
That Jalen's expecting him to sit, but Devontae didn't get the memo or they didn't communicate it well. And so like there's layers to like why something breaks down. The biggest thing I've learned after football is be careful blaming something on a quarterback or a wide receiver in the passing game unless you really know, because as Nick knows, and you guys have to eat it. If the wide receiver is on the wrong side of the red line, if you're not on the McAfee show, maybe nobody ever knows it. And you just got to deal with it. But that's the complication of the passing game.
Yeah. And I think it is made worse by the fact that, just to go back to the basics here, the Eagles' yards per carry, talking about run game, yards per carry, rush success rate, yards before contact are all at 10-year lows for Nick Sirianni, right? And it's a head scratcher because by and large, same personnel. Jeff Stoutland still in the building, right? So but it is what it is, right? It's a head scratcher, but it is what it is. It makes everything harder because, Chris, and I know you're going to agree with this, generally so far this year, I think it's pretty tough to say that anyone's better than the Rams. And when people talk about the Rams, they go, "Oh, Matt Stafford's having an MVP season," which is true. But what people forget about the Rams is they do a lot of 3 tight end sets. And since the middle of this past season, they are in the top 5 in every rushing category. They will run all over you. So is Matt Stafford having a great year and is he a pure passer? Absolutely. But look at the running game he's got to work with. Yeah. So if I'm going to give Jalen a little slack and maybe even Kevin Patullo, because we know Kevin doesn't, now marrying concepts is important, but Kevin doesn't run the run game. It's Jeff Stoutland. And I'm not even blaming Jeff Stoutland. But it's hard for me to sit here and think, Jeff Lurie this past week said, we have a Super Bowl defense, we have great special teams, and an offense that will get it going. We've all hoped for weeks they're going to, quote, get it going. But with this run game being 10-year low for Nick Sirianni, the worst it's been since he got there, it's really hard to be optimistic, even with these adjustments you're talking about.
You might not be able to will it to get to the level it was last year. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. And that's the point I was making about teams that play good defense. Houston, I think, could go to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. As bad as they look this year, because they have such a good defense, and what their offense started to figure out is we can go 3 plays at a time, and we can possess the football. And CJ's back, and he's starting to hit some of these 3rd and longs and get them out of trouble. But the point I'm making is if the Eagles just reinvent their ambitions, right? You watch that Chargers game, Justin Herbert, one hand, nobody blocking for him up front. You think we got it bad, okay? They finish a field goal drive at one point later in that game, and he's walking over the sideline, and Harbaugh's like, "Great job!" Their assignment is not complicated by narratives in the city and the media. How's the quarterback playing? Their narrative is we got to win football games. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I think the Eagles have to kind of, I'm not calling them egomaniacs, but I'm saying they got to bury the who cares what it looks like. The assignment now from here to February is don't hang the defense out to dry and extend drives. Even if it's just field goals, we can't lead the league in 3 and outs. We can't turn the ball over. Right. So as much as I'm saying take risks, also know who you are right now.
Great point.
So Chris, just from people listening that might not realize this, offenses that you've been around, defense, offenses that continuously go 3 and out. I know in St. Louis, we weren't a dynamic offense, right? It was rough.
It wasn't just you. It was every year.
Yeah, but
I thought it was all Nick. But whatever.
Yeah, so you've experienced that. Why is it so hard for defensive units when the offense is continuously going 3 and out?
Well, you got a couple problems. Number one is morale. Okay, so your morale as a defense. You feel no matter what we do, we're going to be right back out there. Yeah. And forget about it. If you hear sudden change a lot, that's really tough. So pragmatically, you can't make adjustments. You have no time to. And from a statistical standpoint, just a law of averages, I'm not sure if this is the right term, but if I'm on the field for 75 plays, chances are they're going to find plays that work offensively. If you've got a lot more opportunities to break an explosive, to win on a down in and down out basis, offenses are going to find you and they're going to figure out your tendencies. So time of possession is huge, number one. But also it's just the attrition of grabbing your helmet every 5 minutes and running back on the field. That's really hard. And the field position thing is huge.
Yep.
How did the Colts almost beat the Seahawks this week? Great special teams. And an offense that wasn't too ambitious. Right. They understood their assignment. They were running the ball in plus territory on 3rd and 7.
Yep.
Okay? Because they were we're going to kick field goals or we're going to pin you.
Yep.
And Seattle started with the ball backed up inside the 20 probably 5 times in the first half. Mm. And so, you think about that, it's just if you understand the assignment very clearly And that's not to handicap yourself as an offense because you still have great players. But, like, just know that if we can score 21 points in this game, chances are we're going to win this football game because our defense is that good.
Yep.
And if we can just possess the football and not set them up in these fucked up, effed up situations, then we're probably going to win the game. So,
Yeah.
you know, to me, it's limiting the 3 and outs as much as anything because turning the ball over has not been Jalen's problem.
Yeah. No, I think the beautiful thing about that is, and this is different, they've led the league in 3 and outs, but I think from a defensive standpoint with the Eagles this year is they know that this offense, with the skill set that they have, can explode at any point. Whereas, you know, you've been on teams where you're like, it's just probably not going to happen. And there's just such a psychological difference when you know that offense can do that. I know, like, when we were, like, the divisional round against the Falcons in 2017 was 100%, you know, weather and field position battle the entire game. And then defense comes up big on the last play of the game and made plays. But that's where, like you said, like, right now the Eagles just have to focus on getting a little better and winning games now. Just continuing to win. They've won a lot of games this year. And they have a great, you know, they play the Commanders twice, which is a pretty simplistic defense. Dan Quinn's defenses aren't, like, crazy exotic historically. And then the big challenge in between that will be going and playing the Bills. That'll be a great test game for both teams. But, you know, from a defensive perspective, like, that's what's great about the Eagles. One, they have Vic Fangio. They got great players. But they know on the offensive side of the ball, they got dudes. They got a, you know, Super Bowl MVP quarterback that the ceiling is – he's not even gotten close to what his ceiling could be. The thing is, will he get to that ceiling? And hopefully they continue to develop, like you said, like your wife said. You know, we need some more bunches. We need some more stacks. And, you know, when I was listening to the game, the announcer had stated, hey, I love that they're doing these bunches, these tighter sets, running the ball. But the big thing, too, is they need to pass out of these sets. They need to make sure that these alignments, these sets, they need to have some play action concepts that look the same. And from a defensive standpoint, like, defensive players, secondary safeties, linebackers, like, they know, like, y'all go into games knowing, like, hey, like, this is a run formation. That this tight end's in, they do not run the ball, they do not pass the ball when this tight end's the game or this alignment. Yeah. And that's where I think the self-scouting will be even bigger. Is like, make sure, and we've said it all year long, and I believe it is, if you're going to run the ball out of a formation and a personnel, let's have a play action concept as well to complement that, because you run it early in your first 15, and Andy Reid was great with this. Doug Peterson was great with this. In our first 15 scripted plays, and it's just first and second down for listeners, then we had our third down and red zone, we would have runs in there that correlated with a play action shot. And the reason we would do that is we wanted to see what coverage and what personnel they would play versus this set, because you have an idea going in the game. That's why you have them in your game plan. But let's see what they decide to play. So are they going cover 4? Are they going cover 3? Because that switches what concept you want. Do you want a post or do you want a deep cross? You know, so those things matter. And as they go, that's what we're talking about as they develop. Like, if you're going to run the ball, let's get some play action shots. And once again, Jalen Hurts, great at throwing the ball deep. That's not a flaw in his game. The flaw is going through progressions, and that's constantly been a flaw. A couple years ago, it was stated in like 2023 when Brian Johnson was the coordinator, they would just stick to half field reads. Just keep him on this side 1 to 2. There's no pure progressions. And I think you and I, you know, we talked about this the other day. Yeah. The pure progressions thing. What that really means is you don't do that all the time, but like some of my favorite plays were pure progressions. You have 5 potentials. It'd be right to left, left to right. It'd be like a flat corner, shallow, basic little pirate thing. And there, very seldom would you get to 5, but I would get to 4 a lot because you know your timing and rhythm. So that's where they continue to grow.
My question to you is, with as much as teams play zone match, do you think that, like, well, it seems obvious to me, but like the way the Eagles distribute their routes and as many sit routes and like stationary, you know, late in the down, like people are just standing there. Does that make it just so easy to play zone coverage against them?
It does, but yes, if you're just doing all sits, absolutely. But like some of the greatest concepts in zone. So we used to have a concept called Tampa, and then if I saw like a cover 3 zone, I'd be like, hey, bay. All that would do is switch one receiver, or I'd say alert. I would say in the huddle, I would alert random routes based on different coverages because I wasn't for sure if it'd be man or zone. Man, I want the corner route because it's a runaway route. Zone, I want a basic. And the reason I like that, you want one of those routes, and the basic guy's got to be a savvy tight end or a savvy slot receiver because they got to find the holes. You're literally reading like a flat and a sit. You're reading the flat defender. there are times where they push, they cover perfectly, but what's great is with a basic, you're coming around running away from that underneath flat defender. So if you're on time in rhythm, you should get to him right when he passes the flat defender because he's sitting there. You sort of eye the sit route. We have a lot of sit routes, and then you have a basic coming in behind him. Boom. But if you don't have timing and rhythm with your feet, it all starts with your feet. So if there's anyone listening, quarterback play starts with your feet. That's why like our kids play soccer, basketball. There's all these foundational sports. That's why you don't just play one sport. You got to develop your footwork. Your feet will tell you where to go when you're reading it and the timing of the play. And you know, like 1, 2, 3, hitch. It's not there. I'm resetting and ripping the basic. Oh, the other guy shot across. Man, I got a sit route over here. So you develop these concepts that have progressions within zone. Zone, yeah, you do want sits. You have sticks and you have these alternates. I mean, Evan, you played tight end, so you know how to read the middle of the field and stuff. But you want someone out there like a Dallas Goedert or a slot receiver that can.
I feel like I'm listening to my coach in an install meeting.
Yeah,
right
no,
but
but
I've actually started to tune out and oh, I'm about to fall asleep. Not because it's boring.
No,
I'm just trained
because
to be oh my
you've
God.
heard it so many times. But that's the thing is, it's something that like when we would do installs, and these are things that whenever I would be installing, and install meetings like at the end of the year, they get boring because you're doing the same stuff. But what I would do is I would literally on my install every single time write the same notes week in and week out through my entire career.
Same guy.
I wouldn't
Same
even.
guy.
I wouldn't even.
Boring
Just,
guy.
I knew the progressions. I knew it, but I would.
A picture of a bunch of dicks like super bad.
Now there
guy. He's like a machine, dude. He's like a computer.
No, you could definitely go through my install sheets, and I definitely drew pictures. I don't think I drew pictures of that, but I would draw
dicks all over your playbook. You were that guy.
No,
everyone knew whose playbook it was.
No, that would have been Selleck. That would have been Selleck for sure.
All right.
Hey, no, but timing. I think J.J. McCarthy's a perfect example of this. I think he's got the tools to play in the NFL, but Kevin O'Connell said it like out loud a few times this year, which is interesting to me to hear a coach kind of out what's going on in the building. And then when I watch him play, like the other night, I forget what it was. It was like a crosser to nailer, like maybe like a deep over or something. And, you know, like you can kind of see that and as a defensive lineman, I don't look at this all the time, but his feet weren't set when it was time to throw the ball, and he's a little late. And, you know, like he's improved at that, right? I'll tell you the other guy, I think for a young guy that actually plays with really good timing, and you tell me if you watch him, I like this Tyler Shuck guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Out of New Orleans.
Yeah,
I think he's got some Nick Foles in
I have to battle saying his name right, which you did, which tells me you actually watch him. Nick, at the beginning of the season, Nick's like, what?
Tyler Show?
No, I think you're spot on. I mean, Tyler Shuck's been fantastic.
No,
so
and I think that's the big thing.
And who's his coach?
Kellen Moore.
There you go.
And Moore. That's the thing. When you're a young player, and I was in the air raid system, so footwork, it was all feel. And honestly, I developed feel from high school. I didn't know coverages going into – I didn't know how to read defenses going into college. I learned that in college and through my time in the NFL. But I developed this skill set of feel. I could feel the concept. I could feel the voids. I didn't necessarily understood. And I remember my freshman meetings being at Michigan State, and it's hard being a freshman. I'm from Texas going there. There's so many different battles just being in a different place. But coach would be like, hey, what coverage is this? And I didn't know coverages because I wasn't taught it, and he just wanted me to know. I'd be like, cover 3. He's like, no.
You just knew green grass.
I knew. Well, that's why the air raid system was so good for me. But this was not. This was a pro style. And he's like, no, it's cover dummy. 1. And I'd be like, what coverage is this? Cover 4. No, it's cover 2. So every day I would just get crushed in meetings, and it was so hard for me. But I would go out to practice, and I would do really well at practice. And 2-minute drills, I would always light up 2-minute drills because you're just playing with Bill. You're seeing the voids. And even in high school, I would audible plays based on leverage and coverage. So once I was able to learn the purpose of coverages, how to read coverages, why the concepts worked with it, I put 2 skills together. Right. And that's why I could play, and a lot of times at such a high level, is I could blend both worlds. Like in Philly, we developed that offense around me, not to be like an analytical, like decipher everything, but blend the world of feel and reaction with reading the coverage. You know, and that's where I was at my best.
You know, Brett Favre still didn't know what 3 buzz was like his 10th year.
It was Nick.
I think I know what 3 buzz is. You know, one of the safeties is buzzing down.
That's right.
And it's 3 deep.
No, it was the nickel defense too.
I play a lot of Madden, so I've gotten to know coverages pretty good.
Engage 8.
Now, no, I don't run Engage 8. I run a lot of cover 6.
There you go.
I find that difficult to diagnose for people.
Quarter
and I
halves?
love cover.
You
I
call
love
cover?
3 deep fire zones, and I love double mug looks,
Oh,
Love him.
edge blitzes, cover two trap. So here's my question: how many quarterbacks in the NFL do you think? And I'm assuming this number's smaller. Legitimately, can't walk up to the line and read
It's
a more exotic
great
coverage.
question.
You know, like say a 9 or a 6, or like the difference between 4 and palms, or I don't know what.
okay.
Yeah, like inverted coverages.
No,
right?
no.
Like you
So
said, yeah.
I will tell you
Yeah,
this.
2 invert or whatever.
I will
love
tell
2
you
invert.
this. When we were playing the Bears in 18 in the playoff game, they were so good at hiding exactly what coverage, but their front was so good, so it felt like you were getting an all-out blitz every play. But you see 2 safeties deep, and I remember at some point I went to the side, I'm like, man, I can't tell what the coverage is until the ball's in my hand. And like with Kel snapping the ball in cold weather, I'm literally like a shortstop, like trying to stop it. So by the time I spin myself around, the coverage has switched from the pre-snap. And I'm like, oh, dang, like what the heck? And I'm like trying to, and I can decipher it once the ball snapped. But and that's why you do that. Whenever you would play like a Dan Quinn 3 zombie or whatever, this old Seattle I'm telling you what, you have to have elite personnel to even be a competent defense with the simplistic defenses. But when we would play them, it would be like a breath of fresh air because you knew you were either given their cover 3 and you knew everyone's rules. The safety shaded over here, this other safety down here. And you're like, oh, this is great. I can just go through my progressions. But then you play against these defenses. You have to have a great front because that's what makes them great is the front. Man, whenever those safeties are messing around and moving around, you're like, all right, what is this? You know it's zone. You know it's some type of zone, but they have all these different zones. And that's where throughout practice, and honestly, walkthrough is not about just running your plays and just walking through it aimlessly. What I would do in walkthrough is I would literally, because it was a lot slower, I would catch it and I would decipher the defense. And I didn't want to see the script. So some guys in practice, they would look at the script. I would look at the script to make sure I knew where all our bones were buried in our concept, but I would fold the sheet over so I didn't know what defense. And I would always want the coaches and walkthrough to switch it over. And I might make a mistake, but the reason is my senses were more heightened in practice to read the coverage. And I would always tell the safeties, like, if you can pick me off, pick me off. If you can hide the coverage within what this team does, please hide the coverage. Make it very, very difficult on me because eye control and training your eyes. The safeties tell the story almost every play, but you got to find the safeties and you got to be able to decipher both of them. And then studying film helps you with that because then you know, hey, specifically on third down, like what are they going to do? What are they going to hide? But that all comes with the film study from a quarterback perspective, and then your quarterback coach. So, like, you were there in 17, 18 with Flip.
Yeah.
And I look back at my career. I mean, every day. I talked to Nate Selfeld last night. We were just catching up on life and everything, and we were talking ball. He had been watching the Eagles, so I want to know his assessment, which is a lot of what we've talked about. But I was like, man, the more I think about it and just the importance of, like, practice and quarterback play and fundamentals – I'm like, man, Flip, every day of practice was game day for Flip. Practice was game day for Flip, and it was almost annoying, but I was so grateful. If I was a quarterback coach, with how he brought the energy to practice, his intentionality with every single drill, whether it was just pre-practice snaps with centers or individual drills, that made us so much better. And I will say this, throughout my career, I was blessed with other quarterback coaches, but no one brought the intentionality that Flip did to practice, and that made us better.
That was a low-key thing that I always used to hear was like, there's always these guys in the building that don't get enough credit because offense in the NFL is actually like a team thing leading up, depending on who your head coach is or your coordinator. Like, that was a group effort, the way it was always explained to me. And when you talk about Kansas City, I'm not saying, it ain't Reed, but I think, like, they miss, like, a guy like Eric Bieniemy. I've heard about the kind of guy he was on the details, and like he was kind of like the bad cop. Like, you kind of need that guy. And the other thing I'll say is this: it's hard enough to figure out in some of these coverages these days what's going on, and if you're not undressing the defense in any way pre-snap, it becomes even harder.
Yeah.
So you're putting yourself at even more of a disadvantage. If who I think does a great job of getting pre-snap looks is Matt LaFleur. I think they do a good job of getting the indicators and knowing where they're going with the ball. When I watch that offense, I'm like, intentionality.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I watch Phillies, I'm like, let him play.
Yeah.
Plays.
Well, I mean, you
Yeah.
guys mentioned too, and anytime you got a front four that gets pressure and you can drop 7, you can do so many cool things on the back end when your front
That's
four
right.
can get there, right? So it's why at times the Eagles have been so deadly, right? With their interior too, those guys when healthy are dangerous, you know.
No question.
As much as we'd love to keep Chris for 4 hours, I know we got to let him go soon, but
We'll let him go at 3 hours.
But I want, we have we're only an hour into a 4-hour show here, so we love it.
Yeah.
In the context of the Eagles, it also helps to look at the greater landscape of the NFC, Chris, like how this thing's going to shape up from a playoff standpoint. Because it looks like, Eagles finished with 2 games against the Commanders and then the Bills as well. And the Bills will be a good barometer for them, but they're probably going to end up with a 3 seed regardless, unless something crazy happens, because they're going to win their division and be a 3 seed in front of the NFC South champ, who might have a losing record. Let's start with tomorrow night's game. Might be the game of the year in the NFL. Rams and Seahawks, both teams are 11-3. The winner has the inside track to the 1 seed in the NFC and will hold serve on home field. The Rams right now are a 1-point favorite. The first time they played, Sam Darnold threw 4 picks. The Rams win a lot of, and I know you're a defensive guy, the Rams win a lot of sub personnel against their base packages because the Seahawks don't really have a run game that scares people. So they figured, hey, let's go base, let's go sub, nickel. We know they're going to throw the ball a bunch, and it put Sam in a tough spot. They brought some pressure. They picked him off 4 times, and the Hawks only lost the game by 2 points. They were a long field goal away from winning. So I want to get to other NFC teams as well, but I want to know what you think about tomorrow night's matchup for potential 1 seed in the NFC and what threat that is to the Eagles down the stretch.
Yeah, I think I'm going to pick the Seahawks in that game. I do think the Rams are probably the best team in the NFC as it stands right now, but I think playing up there is really tough. And you know how this is. You play a team twice, to beat a team twice is really hard. And taking into account the fact that Seattle played as bad as they could have in that game.
Yeah.
He threw 4 picks, and they're lining up to kick a field goal and win that game. I also think this, and I think they've done a great job in Seattle with that Clint Kubiak hire because they're not great up front. Okay, I think Gray Zabel does a good job. I think Sundell stepped in nicely, and people like the tackles. But I think a lot of it is, hey, and this is why I thought it was a really intentional hire. It's like, how do we protect the fact that we got a quarterback who crumbled, under pressure late in the season? I don't mean pressure of the job. I mean legitimate, 7 people in his face. Mm-hmm. How do we not have that happen again, except for the fact that we have a subpar offensive line and pass protection? Well, you need Clint Kubiak. You need somebody like that can get heavy and throw out of these heavier packages and challenge people. You heard Greg Olson talk about this a lot this year, is the phenomenon of people trying to get people, coax them into getting into heavy packages and then throwing against them. I think Seattle, it's an interesting game because both these teams prefer to be in these heavier packages. The Rams have been a lot more proficient passing the ball and running the ball. And so I think the key is Quentin Lake is not in this football game. He's a fantastic nickel for them, right? And I think I don't know if he got hurt in that first game or not, but that's a big, if you're going to stay in base, as bad as Seattle's been running the football, you need a guy that can play in the box. And so I think they'll miss him. And I think on the other side, I'm looking at the Emanwari matchup against those tight ends.
Yep.
That guy's such a stud. He's going to be an incredible player there for a long time. So I do think if Seattle doesn't turn the ball over, they have a very good chance to win this game. Also, Devontae Adams is probably out in this game.
I mean, it's hard to believe a guy that pulls up on a deep ball because of a hamstring plays the following week on a short week. And that's
is that where we're going?
I mean, well, so what do you mean?
Is that the report that he might play?
Well, McVay's saying he's got a shot, but it's like, dude, it's Thursday. He pulled up on Sunday.
Of course you're going to say that.
Right, of course. Right?
Yeah, because now they have to game plan for it.
By the way, Devontae leads the league in touchdown receptions, and Puka Nacua in receptions and yards is number 2. Right? For a team that also runs the hell out of the football.
That's dangerous.
They have that much production from these 2 receivers, but they might be down on one of them. And like you said, this versatile nickel guy in Quentin Lake that allows you to do these cool things out of sub. It might be tough for the Rams, but the Rams nonetheless in Seattle favored by a point. How about that?
Yeah, no, I mean I get it, and the Rams are probably the better football team. My question, because Shula loves the sim pressures, and I know we got to go, but Nick, when it came to diagnosing sim pressures for people at home, maybe you could explain what they are, but like I'll give my best shot. It's essentially, it's an exchange for a big guy dropping and a little guy blitzing, and kind of throw people off. So, how did you read those sim pressures?
If I was the defensive coordinator, I would have a lot of simulated pressures. One, it messes with the QB's eyes and his clock in his head, because you see a blitzer, you call it a blitzer. The reason you do it too is you eat up the back. You eat up a check down if that's not who the line's going to, right? So you want to bring that simulated pressure, but then get a guy out there in the coverage. So you really, the key is you're speeding up the clock and then you eat up the back, which is a great check down. Right. A lot of times when the back gets out, you go through your progression, boom, check it down. So I think they're great. I mean, you and I both, Ev, like we've talked about it, like simulated pressures are awesome. I think they're great
when done the right way.
When they're done the right way at the right time. I mean, it's one of the best defensive plays in football that can
you're getting
really
pressure without sacrificing coverage.
Exactly.
Right?
I mean, you have a lesser defender in coverage. That's where you're sacrificing, but you're getting a lot more than you're giving up. So I love them. I think they're great.
Shoot, it worked against the Eagles with the damn D tackle dropping right into that. It was a pivot they ran, and they knew right where he was going to be.
Chargers game.
It's that oh shit factor of like, oh, I thought I had it, and as soon as the ball separates, as soon as my hands separate, like I see the big guy there.
That's where I think just eye control. Like, I mean, you're read, like a lot of times when I was dropping back to pass. I mean, you would think if I asked a normal person, like if I'm dropping in the back to pass, am I looking at my receivers to throw them the ball like you're doing routes on air, or am I looking at defensive players?
Yeah.
And there are the guys who get in trouble are looking at their receivers. I know where my receivers are going to be. That's why we rep the plays, and the plays are in the game plan. Is I know exactly where they should be at the exact right time with the exact right footwork. My eyes are on the defense. They are reading the defense. My eyes are up. I'm seeing the field. I'm seeing what I need to focus on in the area. Maybe if my progression starts on the right and I know like I have this route and this route, I'm reading the defensive players to see who can mess this thing up, or if I need to manipulate them with my eyes, my body, or all you would have to do is like a little break of the hands. I was talking to some DBs early in my career. It might have, and I was like, hey, like what message? It might have been like Malcolm Jenkins when he joined the Eagles in 2014. Shout out to Malcolm, Eagles Hall of Fame. Congratulations. But a lot of those guys would say is the second the hands are just slightly separated, that to them is a trigger to go. Mm-hmm. So like there's times I would drop with manipulation, eyes and just a little bit of a hand separation, because when you do a full pump fake,
Aaron does this stuff a lot.
You have to reload, but every time you separate your hands, it messes with the DBs. So, but those are skill sets that young players that they can develop. Those are little things, but you work them in practice, in fundamentals, and in walkthrough to add it to the next level.
It sounds so cool to be a quarterback. I think know, right? In my next life.
Yeah, dude. I mean, I played 11 years in the NFL, and I could have gotten better. I mean, even at the end of my career, there were so many things that I could have gotten better and better and better at. I didn't master them. Really, you don't master anything. I think that's the beautiful thing about sports is if you want to, there's always something. There's always going to be a little flaw in your game that you can work on. That's what makes these guys so great. Even Tom Brady, throughout his career, I mean, you saw him. Later in his career, he started doing the Brady documentary. I think he did that the Super Bowl year we did. So we actually ended it on a sour note for him. But like he was always working on getting better at his craft. And that is what, I mean, young players and out there, like always work on those little things. And even these guys in the pros, and even if you make a Pro Bowl or you win a Super Bowl, just continuously knowing where your flaws are and getting better, because you can continue to excel. There's so many little things that you can work on, but that's off-season training, that's summer training, and that's walkthroughs and pre-practice. My philosophy is once practice started and it was a practice period, I was no longer working on the fundamental that I was focused on pre-practice. I was playing football at the fastest level as I could in practice, so it translated to game day.
My dad, I'll leave you with this one. My dad, he used to talk about 2 elevators. And, there'd be one elevator is your physical prowess, your ability. And, it starts here and it's coming down the whole time, whether you like it or not. And you learn that hard lesson as you get older. You're like, damn, there's really no way around this aging shit. And then the other one's your mental elevator, which is you don't know anything. And so here's your prime. And as this elevator dips, and at the end of your big brain 11-year player, you sit back and you think youth is wasted on young people, is it not? Because
Well, it's why Phillip Rivers is playing right now, right? Because his understanding is, I mean, he's at the ground level on his ability wise, but
his elevator, he's an undergrad going to the basement.
That's right. He's in the basement, but he's on the rooftop with his understanding of the game. Chris, before we let you go, just real quick, it sounds like the Eagles most likely 3 seed going to host a home playoff game because that's the way the NFL works. You win your division, you host it. They're likely going to see, if it started today, they'd see the Niners. Niners are 10-4 and finish with the Colts, then the Bears, then the Seahawks, or the Packers, depending on how this thing shapes up. If you're the Eagles, who do you want to see between those two teams coming to the link in the first round of the playoffs, and how do you think it plays out?
Out of the Niners and who?
Packers.
I'd rather see the Packers.
Really?
Really?
Interesting. Why is that?
It's a weird thing. It's a weird thing.
It is a weird thing.
I have a bad feeling. I think we could score on the Niners for sure.
They can't stop the run, so you might be able to run it against them.
That's a good point.
But I think the Niners might have some things cooked up offensively where it's hard to get off the field.
Yeah.
They're just so well coached. You can kind of match the Vic Fangio factor. And when I look at the Packers, I could be dead wrong. I picked them to win the division. So if they finish the season looking awesome, then whoop-de-doo. But that Micah Parsons injury is huge.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they're like San Francisco level. If you lose Micah Parsons, they don't have any pass rush. But those guys don't win a lot of rushes.
Yeah.
And you've already beaten that team at home. You beat them in the playoffs last year. There's that kind of like, we match up well against this team. I don't know that the Packers, not to make this a challenge, I don't know if they're physical enough. I thought Denver imposed their will late in that game. And I think Josh Jacobs is a bear to get down, but I don't think their O-line's physical. Yeah. And quite frankly, like without Micah Parsons, I don't think it's a house of cards. I love the DC. I think there's some good players on defense. But if Christian Watson, and I don't know what the deal is with his injury,
should be back. Should be back soon. Yeah.
He's going to be back.
Yeah.
If he was hurt, and I know it's a big if, but like you kind of lost your two most important players, respectively non-quarterback, because he was the guy that bailed him out of the Tucker Kraft thing. They kind of had to mini reinvent themselves. Now you're going to need guys to be – they had it really neatly laid out where Watson's the deep ball guy, Dobbs the intermediate guy, Wicks is the man beater, and then, you've got Jaden Reed back, and it felt like they had a full deck. The Watson thing really hurts them. Mm-hmm. So I don't know why. I feel like I would rather play the Packers in that state than the Niners.
Well, to your point, if the Packers win the division, then all of a sudden the Bears are in that spot. And now you got a team that runs the ball extremely well, and that presents a whole new challenge.
Play the Bears.
Right? I'm the same way. And you got Caleb making, flash plays late in games. You're like, where the hell did that come from, right? Doesn't take sacks, doesn't turn it over. That is a dangerous squad too. So I would say, okay, Packers, Bears, Niners is kind of one of those three teams is who's going to be coming to the link probably.
You know what, Chris? I loved everything you just said, man. I was actually, before the show we talked about it, and I was like 49ers, and I was more simplistic. Like, man, they're in the Bay Area, and they got to go to the link and play in the cold weather. Those guys are going to be freezing their butts off, man.
They've done it.
And you know what it's like when you're a team that's used to that warm weather and you got to go play in the cold.
Who beat Aaron at Lambeau to finish his career in Green Bay?
Jimmy Garoppolo.
Right. And this team and Kyle, they run. They're tough, dude. They this team's overachieved all year long.
Yeah. No, I thought both of y'all made great points.
Well, the other thing is, before we were in Chicago, was in 4-minute mode at the link, right? When's the last time that happened? I know the answer. It was San Francisco a couple years ago when they beat the brakes off that 23 team. I think it was 23. Yeah. I'm not saying it's the same thing, but
no, that's a great point.
I think about the coaching advantage. Yeah. I think Salah's doing a great job. Yeah. As untalented as they are, it's amazing. I think Coach of the Year might be Shanahan.
Yeah, could be.
No, I thought that was insightful. I appreciate
really good.
That.
Chris, I mean, this has been fantastic, man. I know you're a busy dude. You got a lot going on. I can't tell you how much we appreciate your time. Having the Greenlight Pod and Chris Long join us here on the Season Pod. This is a highlight for the Season Pod in its first season. So,
dude, little collab. I freaking love. I love Nick, obviously, but you're the man, dude. I've been enjoying watching you guys cook it up. You guys it's just getting started. Get ready to get real famous. Get ready to get podcast.
We might be relying on you for some insight. So again, we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. We're just getting this thing off the ground, and you taking the time to do this means a lot to both of us. So thank you very much.
I appreciate y'all boys, man.
As we said earlier, this is episode 20, the season podcast, with our special guest, Chris Long. Thank you very much for listening.